Hello and welcome to the Soul Sync podcast. I'm Jason Paul. Now, I've got a returning guest for you on this episode. It's someone who's been on the podcast a few times before, but I wanted to invite her back on. Firstly, we always have an absolutely terrific natter. She makes me laugh a lot and sort of brings out my silly side, so make of that as you will. But I wanted her to come on to talk about a topic which is interesting, and it's where science and spiritualism are sort of coming together now. There's a lot of research being done. Personally, I think we're discovering a lot of things that have already been known for a very long time anyway, but there is links being made, and that's no bad thing when it comes to medicine, how we kind of view things in the Western world, especially when it comes to how the East also views medicine. So it's really interesting, this kind of whole discussion anyway. Penny has been orchestrating some of her own research. She's been organising courses and getting professors and all sorts to come on to these courses and conduct research, which is all kind of funneling into studies and so on. So Penny's got lots going on at the moment, and she sort of delves into a lot of that with me. And we sort of also talked about how many people have spiritual experiences that often, you know, very sort of quiet and subtle, and they're very personal, because you could all day long say that you've got a sign here or you felt a certain thing, but unless that thing has really touched you, or it's very hard to kind of get that across in words to people as well. So sometimes it can be the most subtlest of signs that we may get from the spirit world or from God, however we kind of want to look at the world. And, you know, we that's where we got to trust our gut feeling as well a lot of the time. It's very important to do that. If you think you've got a sign, you've got a sign. But, you know, even when I first came into mediumship, I was looking for signs all over the place. Like, trust me, even though my own granddad was a medium, it wasn't something that I came to believe in easily. I wanted to believe in it, so I would go on all like ghost hunts trying to find evidence of the paranormal. And, you know, I actually talked about that a few episodes ago where Adam Berry, I think it was, I was talking about it, and I said, yeah, my last experience before I went to the college was going to a prison on a ghost hunt. And he said, well, it's hardly surprising you were scared of spirits. So that's very interesting. So, you know, there's also something to be said about sitting comfortably with I don't know about something. So we also talk about how spirituality is explored within academic and research settings, and how times really are coming to a change in a lot of things where we're kind of bridging these two worlds. Oh, I'm so excited to say this. Penny Hayward, welcome. I'm building it up too much already, aren't I? Penny Hayward, welcome to the Soul Sync.
Thank you.
I knew what I was doing there. So I'm going to say from the very beginning, Penny is a frequent visitor, and you just can't stay away. And we love that. We're encouraging that. And if you want to go back, there is some really interesting episodes that Penny has done. A fairly recent one was Journey into Consciousness, and there's other ones back in the library. So we're not going to go into that right now, because, Penny, I want to get down to something interesting with you. Now, I understand that in April, you're doing a Psychic Science in Mediumship week. Now, it's an experimental week, and that isn't it, because I keep seeing your name kind of come up, and we've spoken about this before on some of the, because you're a very you do a lot of research. You're like me, you're always going down a rabbit hole or another, but something that you keep looking into at the moment is the link between science and spirituality and mediumship and all these things. So when I saw you was doing this week, I thought, right, come on now, we need to get you on. So Penny, welcome.
Thank you. Well, thank you for that very enthusiastic welcome as well. It's always good to be with you and the energy of your show. So yes, my week in April next year is at the Arthur Findlay College, and it's a psychical science and research week, which obviously includes mediumship. But there are also other elements to the week where it's introducing experimental sessions or even guests to come in and talk about their research. So I'm looking to bring in more academic researchers, if you like, and talk about their research and in the current times as well, as opposed to Sir Oliver Lodge, who was brilliant. Don't get me wrong, but we live in times today. So yeah, so the week includes someone from Monroe Institute. And of course, if you've heard of the Monroe Institute, they do a lot of research into consciousness, near-death experiences, out-of-body experiences, and they use their techniques to help people to reach those sort of states through binaural beats or their Monroe sound signs. So we have Luca there. And I also am going to have Agnes Venskis, or I should say Dr. Agnes Venskis, who she came along last year. So we're still just about in 2025. So end of last year, beginning of this year. And she was measuring the brain waves of mediums as they went before and when they went into the mediumistic state. So she's got a proper academic research paper that she's doing based on that. And
I have to ask you about that straight away, because that we haven't got to the end of the course yet, and I'm already so because this is something that's interesting, because for a long time science has said off you pop, it doesn't exist. Why are they now starting to, it seems now, wanting to take an interest in it?
Well, so we're in danger of going off on lots of tangents, and why not? So I have to say that, let's say, materialist scientists have always and still are very adamant that, that doesn't exist, and call anything to do with parapsychology or anything like what we do pseudoscience, if there is like research into mediumship and other psi phenomena. So that still exists. There are still science community that are very much of that philosophy. But there are a lot of scientists, physicists are very open, but neuroscientists and others that were once perhaps on the more skeptical side and have had their own personal experiences, and then they go investigating and they find there's something more, so then they want to look into it more with their knowledge and research. So Agnes is, as I was about to say, a neuroscientist. And so she is very academic, and she's interested in what we do. And thus,
did you have to persuade her? Did you have to get out a magic
not
or something
not at all.
Perform a feat? Okay,
no.
You haven't been knocking at her door in the university car park for months, Penny, to come and
No, I wasn't actually. In fact, she was introduced to me in a roundabout way, and so she ended up coming on various weeks at the college, and with the permission of the course organisers, students could, in lunch breaks, not in class times, that was the deal, but in lunch breaks or when the course day had finished or something like that, they could go and do this experiment, because ultimately the brainwave test took a relatively short amount of time.
I'm struggling to see this, Belle. Like, I'm thinking about, I'm having me dinner, I'm having me dessert, then all of a sudden we go into Penny's room where all the laboratory machines are. And was it quite like I'm imagining it was, or was it a little...
No,
I'm imagining you there with a clipboard, walking people in with your white gloves on.
Well, oh my gosh, I'm a bit worried about what you're thinking there. So, no, none of that. But I had my brain waves measured as well as part of...
By example, you must do that to start off with if you're going to
absolutely.
Get it. Yeah.
And I wanted to know for myself about my own brainwaves. So it's a bit of an interesting story, and she's in the process of writing the paper. So as soon as the paper's been written, I will put it out on social media. So I, amongst, I don't know, 54 odd other mediums were tested, and she very kindly gave me a brief kind of summary about my own brainwaves, but I want to pick her brains a little bit more about her. But essentially, she had gotten a little bit excited about seeing my brainwaves because she said that when I went into the mediumistic state, all the different areas of the brain lit up. So in sciencey
Computer
terms,
was going into some kind of meltdown. Penny should never seen
Yeah.
it before.
yeah. So in sciencey terms, the neurocorrelates were all lit up. So now, in a lot of research into consciousness, they only look at one area of the brain or another and kind of fit their theories into certain neurocorrelates. And anyway, so she sort of said, oh, well, yours were very interesting, Penny. And I subsequently found out other people's were similar, but not the same. So what happened was when I went into the mediumistic state, all of my brain lit up. And the only time she'd seen that was with people having a seizure, but clearly I'm not having a seizure. So she found that very interesting, but she's been looking at all the other mediums that were tested, and they were having multiple areas of the brain light up, but not quite like mine did. Now, I don't think I'm terribly special, because I'm sure that if, hundreds of mediums were tested, there would be a lot more that were, similar
I'm having
to
a
mine.
good day or a bad day, Penny. You hooked me up on
And
a
it
Tuesday
could
morning
be
before
that.
that coffee. There'd be nothing there, I tell you.
Well, this is possible. This is possible. So, and I think this is it. It depends on multiple factors, doesn't it? And what's your skill level base, and all these sorts of things, and what's the connection between you, the spirit world, and the researcher, because she's the one receiving the information and validating the connection. So anyway, she is going to finish writing the paper, and she will come as a guest onto that week next year, and she will talk about that research and what she found from a neuroscientist point of view. And ultimately there's a clear distinction between when we're at rest and when we're in the mediumistic state. And the way our alpha state works is different to the average person. So I can't really go into a lot of detail about it because I haven't got the paper.
Well, it's live. It's still going on. It's what's happening one year. The research of one year is now forming a paper for another. It's live and unfolding, as they say.
And so Agnes and I also have some plans to get together and do some more research for mediumship and healing. So I've got an ongoing project with Weird Technologies, which I may have mentioned to you.
I'm sure I would have remembered the first name. I've got a project in Weird Technologies. Penny, tell me more, please. Let me get my notepad out. Tell me.
Weird spelt WYRD.
Yes, of course.
And that's based on an old, I can't remember if it's Gaelic or Welsh, but it's an old name which got a lot of bad reputation as occultist or something, and negativity and what have you. So Weird Technologies are wanting to make it cool again, and it is about psi phenomena, consciousness, etc. So anyway. They have come up with some devices which they have random event generators inside. So the Weirdoscope has 2 random event generators, 2 random number generators, and a bunch of techie stuff inside which measures across the streams of bits. So the random event generators create continuous strings of bits, which are zeros and ones. And so then when there's something happening in the atmosphere, then all the different generators they should be doing their own thing and not be in cahoots with each other, but maybe they all start doing zeros at the same time, or they all do ones at the same time, things that it shouldn't do. And so this is
so interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting, and it's based on Walter von Lukadow's pragmatic. I forget like the whole thing, but if you look up Walter von Lukadow, he was a physicist, and he kind of came up with this mathematical kind of system, pragmatic system, to be able to measure across these different things. So you can tell I'm not a techie, and you can tell I'm not a scientist, but I'm doing my best.
It's fascinating because, firstly, it's kind of like, because it always reminds me, it kind of feels to me like you're almost kind of proving life after death in a whole nother way for the masses and, the people that, well, maybe don't go to a church or don't have one. I will never forget when Dr. Eben Alexander came on this show, and I'd read his book, and he was one of the first people that books I'd ever read, because I started off on this journey looking into near-death experiences, and that was kind of the rabbit hole I went down. And when he came on, he was explaining, obviously, he was a neuroscientist, taught at Harvard or wherever taught now, and then he had this seizure where he was in this coma, and then he woke up, and obviously his whole world of view was completely different. It wasn't just, his job or everything he'd built. And I will never forget him trying to explain that story. And he said, I couldn't even relate to anything because it changed everything about him, because I can't imagine being that way inclined and telling people for years, no, there's no such thing as this, there's no such thing as this, there's no such thing. It happens to you.
Yeah, and this is exactly what I'm saying about people like him that are having these experiences. And so they're going from sort of materialist science into like having their own life-changing experiences, and then they go looking into it and researching it. And so what I was going to say before about that is there's, I think us mediums are in a bit of a bubble. And, we're kind of in our world of exploration, and it's very kind of our experience, our personal interactions, et cetera, et cetera. And I've always wanted to know, but how does it work? So yes, I know how to make a contact, but how does it work? So that led me to actually applying for a master's this year, and in consciousness, spirituality, and transpersonal psychology, which is very fascinating. But this journey of meeting researchers and being interested in trying to bridge that spirituality and science sort of thing, I thought I was a bit cutting edge, but no, I'm not, because there's plenty of stuff out there if you go looking for it, and a lot of academics are actually driving that. So there's actually a lot out there, but then, of course, they write it in academic terminology. So I find that a bit frustrating. I don't keep quiet about how I find that frustrating, because they're not coming up with anything new.
Yeah.
What they're doing is they're relabeling it and going, hey, like it's new. And that I find a little bit annoying, because it's almost erasing our history. Certainly.
I get that, because I keep thinking a lot of things of because recently I keep finding that I'm not really attracted to new books. I used to avoid the ones that were quite old, because I used to think, they're a bit, the writing, they're a bit. Now I sort of love them. I can't stay away from the older books, and I
swear by them. Yeah, I swear by the old books. And it's interesting, because some of the academic papers, if you can get past their language.
And that is hard at the start, I must admit. Now I've just learned to bead over it and just think, okay, I'll come back to that word later.
Yeah, so if you sort of read through their language, all they've done is changed from terminology from the older books, and they've not come up with anything new. But I guess the theory is they have to put it to the modern test, and then put modern terminology to it, so that then they can feel comfortable with it. And I can see their point on that, but it still is frustrating because I think for people that are new, that are venturing into this, it becomes very confusing because if they're coming from the academic side, and I do come across people with academic backgrounds that come into spiritual programs, and they're trying to understand things. They're getting our language, but they're researching stuff in their own language, academic language. So then it gets a little bit, but what are you saying? So I think people like myself who have come from like the spiritual side and the personal development side are then going, what's all this like academic language and like what hang on, now that I understand that's not new. so I think
Sounds like you've just tried to people please all of everyone, no matter which avenue or view.
I think I'm just trying to please myself really, but I think we've got to, in order to bridge the gap between science and spirituality, I guess there needs to be maybe room for all languages, and maybe there needs to be an acknowledgement both ways, and maybe it needs people to be adventurous to try to bring the two sides a little bit closer together, and to bring different people into different spaces so that, say bringing academics into the spiritual space, and then there should be spiritual people going into the academic space. And then that might just sort of start to get a little bit more communication happening and just appreciation of each other's perspectives. So, but hey, I'm not here to win a war or anything like that. I'm just observing these things.
Do you know what it keeps making me think of? Because when I was in the early days of this podcast, I kept having people on from the East and people coming on from like China who would have witch doctors where it was, very kind of, you just go there to get your teeth done. It was like nothing, out of the ordinary. I got told a story where a lovely man called Simon Duran, I think he went to Cambridge or somewhere as a scientist, he decided to go over to China to get his tooth taken out by a witch doctor, and he was in a great deal of pain. Anyway, someone recommended him to go there. He got there. The witch doctor, the story goes, lied him down, put a bit of a string around it, done some witch doctory things, and then just pulled it out. And then that prompted him to start going on a journey of researching this kind of stuff. And he told me that he once, under test conditions, put a GPS in a room with someone, and that person managed to teleport it 100 miles away. And he said that he's seen all this kind of stuff. So do you think, because I don't really know, is mediumship a thing in the East? Are they sort of woken up to this kind of thing? I might be asking you an impossible question. I don't know. I'm just wondering, is this happening in those kind of...
Look, I think it does. It does. I mean, there is a Japanese week at the college. I have seen students from Hong Kong and China. Whether they want people to know that they go there or is another matter. There is, I think, in any different culture or like therefore country, there are different philosophies. There are different... Well, as you just described about Simon's experience, I would think witch doctor, oh God, no way, thank you very much, and so would perhaps a lot of other people. But, he had an experience which helped him to go down a new road. I think I know who you mean. I think he does stuff with the Science and Medical Network, if I've got that right.
Oh, he does actually.
Yeah, I think I've met him actually. So yeah, there are a lot of people from a lot of different cultures, and of course there's a lot of different beliefs in those different cultures, and and that's why I think there is this science and spirituality as opposed to any one kind of doctrine or religion or faith or belief system. It's sort of looking at spirituality as a whole across time and across different
I suppose you're kind of seeing it as well, because being there at the kind of face end of it, you're seeing the people that are coming in through these different paths because of these sorts of weeks, and you're getting to see sort of, I guess, their worldview and how that could change by bridging the two, which must be interesting to kind of see that, because I guess would you still be getting those people on a week that wasn't this week?
I don't know. I mean, I think in general people are searching, and whether it's the week I'm holding, which, you know, everybody book up, it'll be great.
Oh, it will. Well, they probably won't, Penny. Once you've been on here talking about it, they'll probably be booked up. No, I'm just being so negative about it. If you want to go on and have a look, it's on the comments, but look below. Carry on, Penny.
Yeah. But yes, I think people go to, say, the college or other places that teach mediumship and healing and so on and so forth. And, you know, they can come from all walks of life on any course, basically. But I guess my sort of adventuring outside of my own comfort zone and going into, you know, listening to, talking to, interacting with academic people, you know, their approach is very different, but some of them have had incredible experiences which are no different to experiences I've had, or perhaps you've had, or the listeners have had. But it's so like mind-bending to them, because their whole world changes, because they have believed that there is no such thing as, you know, let's say an afterlife, or how like their perception of consciousness may be under one theory. And I didn't realize just how many theories of consciousness there are. The more I look into it, the more I realize there are so many. And I think there's got to be a thread of truth in all of them. And maybe it's about sort of zooming out rather than zooming in. But what do I know? Anyway.
Now, I wanted to ask a question on this. So obviously, when I started hearing about, you know, people that can pull crystals out of the air or can do all these feats of seemingly impossible things by understanding their limitless power and potential, how has what you're doing at the moment, has it changed your view on the power, what it is, you know, what's capable of it? Because when I started going into this, I started thinking and feeling to myself, well, you know, well, if this is possible, then surely this is, and it's essentially down a rabbit hole of what is possible.
Yeah. I think that it's a hard one to answer because it's based on your experience. And for me, if I see something on the internet, it's not good enough. I need to see it with my own eyes, right?
Yeah.
So, and I think that there are some genuine miraculous things going on, but I also think there's some not genuine and miraculous things going on. And I think that all of us are on a journey to find our truth, and we have to have experiences that may be, well, we have experiences which may be good or not good for us as an individual, right? And that's all part of seeking the truth. Now, the more that I sort of, you know, I'm a spiritualist, and I've come through my mediumship training as a spiritualist, and I'm proud of that, and I love that. However, I'm also being exposed to other things outside of that world, and spiritualism is very much about the mediumship. Evidential mediumship is giving the evidence of loved ones, not great ancestors, not guides, not animals, for example, although that's a topic. But, you know, it's about giving evidence and shared memories of someone that would be known to you, that you can validate that information. And that's kind of part of the science of spiritualism. It's only part of the science of spiritualism. And of course, there's healing, and there are very interesting and miraculous kind of experiences that people can have with their healing, and doctors will verify they don't know how the tumor has disappeared, for example. That has happened. However, giving it the sort of scientific rigor of a materialist scientist is a lot more difficult. And so this is why there's then this sort of parapsychology, various different academics that are stepping into that area. But the mediumship part of that is even smaller. And that I find interesting, and it's almost as though there's a bit of like, oh, well, not sure if we should go there or not. Maybe mediums became skeptical of academics because it was about to disprove rather than prove. And I think, I'm seeing that there are more and more people that yes, you're going to have materialist scientists that aren't going to believe in it, and they will just dismiss evidence without even looking at it. So you could, for example, Dr. Agnes Venskas's research, it's academically done, it's done with rigor, etc., EEG machines and what have you, and under strict scientific guidelines. But you will get materialist scientists that will just go, oh, that's pseudoscience, it's rubbish, it's just made up, without even looking at the data. And so they, you cannot change the mind of a skeptic. The skeptic has to have their own experience, which changes their mind. So I'm not here to prove anything. I'm just doing what I do, and I'm doing my best to kind of join together mediumship and mediums and academics. I mean, look, Julie Beischel and a whole bunch of others are out there that are Dr. Oliver Lazar. There's loads of them that have been doing research into mediums and double, triple, quadruple blind readings and, all this kind of stuff, and writing them up into very nice academic papers. But you and I don't necessarily see those things. That it's all just kind of like in a small sort of circle of people, and the rivalry between materialist scientists and others is that's human nature. It's human nature.
I do agree. A lot of things were jumping through my head there, Penny, as they often do when you talk to me. And I think one thing that was, and it's been going through my head a lot recently, and this probably part of this comes to the fact that I used to be a magician when I was growing up. When I was 14, 15, 16, I was very into that, Penny. I'd pop sponge balls from many a place. But I would, Penny. I'd have sponge balls coming out of ears and all sorts. But the point I wanted to make is I think the spirit world's capable of, endless multitude of things. And obviously we use them generally in the form of coming through to give evidence, to provide proof that a loved one exists, which is a beautiful thing. It's how I, first became interested in this world. But that for them is just, the starting.
Yeah, there's other parts to it for sure.
Yeah, I guess the point I'm making is I think there's so much the spirit world could do to help people through things like, prophecy and, trying to help us on our lives through trance and stuff. And I think that it would be so nice to sort of, some of the things of old, like trance, to be sort of woken back up in some way to come more mainstream, because it feels to me like a lot of what we're allowing the spirit world to do is quite, well, it's limiting, isn't it? Beyond. Well, I'm asking a big question there, but that's my view. I just think it'd be nice to get some of these other aspects of media.
Sure. I think there's a time and place for certain things. And I think that, we've got to remember the trance mediumship and physical phenomena, if we're going to go there. A lot of that really was huge around the First and Second World Wars. Yeah. And such mass loss of lives in a short space of time. And people back then were brought up on the Bible and religion and, you went to church every Sunday and all this sort of thing. People nowadays aren't necessarily like that. We're in a very different world, a very different sort of way of being. And it's not to say that there isn't, things going on around the world, but it's not to the same degree as the First and Second World Wars in perspective. Now, I think that physical phenomena and other things are out there for sure. And, maybe it's more about finding your way there if that's what your interest is, and rather than putting it out there. I mean, my personal opinion on trance, and I do trance myself, and maybe some people listening will have seen me do trance, but to me it's quite sacred, and it's for me, the medium, but when I do it in public, it's for mediums. It's not for Joe Blogs, and it's not something I personally would put on Zoom or I've once or twice done it, but I wouldn't. Yeah.
I just think there's a lot of, whenever I hear trance, it moves me a lot because the words are so healing. But I do understand that. But I just recently, it goes through my mind. I think, do you know what? How can the voice of spirit go out there even more beyond maybe what's available at the moment? Because that's why I love you, Penny, because I think that you're always thinking about things. And, I always think when you come on, I think, do you know what? I'm going to ask Penny Hayward about that myself. I want to, so with what you're doing at the moment then, with kind of looking into these different areas, how has it changed your view so far? Is your mind and view on things evolved since this has been coming into you?
I think so. And I also think that it's, as I was saying before, proud to be a spiritualist. I go by that philosophy, etc. But I equally am going outside the comfort zone of spiritualism and looking into these. Well, as I said, I've signed up to do this master's. So I want to understand it from different perspectives because, and I've said it before, in J.J. Morse's book, there was one line in that book, Practical Occultism, that stood out in my mind and has ever since, and that is, there is no royal road. And I mean, the context of that was in terms of our spiritual pathway. And my spiritual pathway is looking into the science. And I'm intrigued by consciousness and quantum physics, and I'm sure that mediums could help unlock some of, not necessarily all of, the secrets to consciousness and quantum physics, because we have an ability which is not your average person's ability. Absolutely everybody on the face of this earth is psychic to one degree or another, and in different aptitudes and different abilities. But not everybody is a medium, and some people may come into it through deep grief and loss. And others may come into it because they've had a near-death experience or a medical kind of breakthrough kind of experience, whatever it might be. And so for me, it's evolving. And I think for me to be a good medium and for me to be a good teacher, I need to keep evolving. I think I get bored. I kind of get bored if I'm not stimulated. And this is definitely like the whole sort of academic side is definitely out of my comfort zone. But
otherwise your teaching doesn't evolve if you're not evolving, I get. Well, I guess it does, but it's that's, I guess, important because that's why you do this, because you just can't stop research.
I do it because I'm interested.
Yes.
I do it because I'm interested, but there are other people that are interested. And it's not something I want to be defined by. I don't want to be sort of, oh, she's the one that just does science, because there's lots of things that I do. And, like evidential mediumship and trance and healing. And, I do absent healing on a semi-regular basis and things like that. So, there are lots of different abilities within my wheelhouse, but I personally need to keep evolving. I need to be stretched. I need my mind exercised. And yes, in these studies, I'm getting a different perspective, which is testing what I think, and is testing perhaps my spiritualist view.
Is there something that perhaps was a belief of yours that prior to doing this, it's now not a belief of yours as a result of doing it, or it's changed in any way?
I would say that I'm more open-minded to things that it's hard to describe. I haven't come to necessarily any firm decisions about certain things, but there are certain things that I am more open to that I may not have been before because of evidence, right?
I love this. I hear the listener in the background say, "Come on, Jason, just pull it out of her. Come on, she's got some." Is there anything that's? I understand. I understand what I'm doing there. I'm asking us, but if there's not, I understand it's an evolution. But I'm just.
It is an evolution, and I'm not really prepared to sort of nail the flag to the mast, so to speak, because I think
when the flag is nailed to the mast, Penny, we want you back.
I'll be back.
Nail it.
But I think as well, look, there certainly, a big factor was about evidence of life after this life. And then there's trance mediumship and there's healing and so forth. And all of that I'm comfortable with. I think, the connection, let's say the connection to nature is a real thing. And we don't we sort of talk about in spiritualism a connection to nature, all of God's creation. But I guess I'm talking about it in a deep sort of way in which, for within the topic of spirituality, there is research and there is a strong case and belief, I suppose is the word, that we can communicate with nature and that there is an energetic exchange, etc., etc. So, and this is something I have experienced but not necessarily talked about. And I guess, I'm more interested and open-minded into exploring those things even more. So it's outside of and it's not conflicting, it's just outside of.
Well, do you know what? I realise that today we've got you on and we're talking about things which are so not normally things we talk about, Penny. We talk about mediumship and all things connected to that. So today, it's been really interesting to hear your perspectives on stuff that, is we're not getting you on to talk about it after it's concluded and the report's been wrote. We're getting you on live where before reports have even come in. So we're very grateful for that.
They're pending.
They are pending, and that's why I'm trying to get the flag out the box, but you're not allowing me to do that, Penny. I understand that. Some of these things are secret. I get that.
Well, there is also I'm waiting to hear what the weird technology techies say about the data that has been collected for the research project that I've done in collaboration with Kirsty Allen, because I ran a series of, let's say, spirit circles, and I also did a number of trance sessions that I recorded, but I'm not sure if that will go in the data or not. But nevertheless, a series of spirit circle sessions with the weirdoscope and other technologies and things. And so I'm just waiting to hear what they say about the data. I'm quite confident that it's good data, and we can write the paper. And that was funded by the Society for Psychical Research. So I'm sure that once it's done, that, you know, it will be published through there, and I'll certainly
Come and tell us all about it. We're very curious.
Yeah, well, I'll put it out there on social media. Don't worry.
Yes.
So,
well, just to ask them, because it's been a fascinating walkthrough, and you know, I think we touched on quite a few things there today, which I'm ever so grateful for. But in true Soul Sync tradition, Penny, we do always get you to leave us on a final thought or a pearl of wisdom or something that, well, it could be anything you like, Penny, to be honest. But as we say, over to you.
Okay. Well, actually, this came up the other day when I was at a spiritualist church. And I had one of those little moments, as you do. And one of the hymns before I was to work was little words of kindness. And it struck me that actually we often think about little words of kindness as, you know, being kind to people and saying nice things and being positive and uplifting, and the world will be a better place, and see what God will do with all your positive thought, your positive words.
Yes.
But I posed to everybody, what about if you had a few little words of kindness for yourself? Because let's face it, the old sort of record player in our minds isn't always
the ego
isn't always so positive, is it?
Yes.
So I posed that, well, what if it started with the little words of kindness in our own head and towards ourselves? Because then that changes the energy within and around us, and then it changes the energy further out from us, and that's maybe how we might change the world. Just a thought.
I think it's a very good thought, to be honest with you, because I think that so often it's very easy to say, oh, it's this person is affecting my happiness, but you're allowing, you know, that person to affect your happiness. And it's, you know, listen, I've had to learn a lot. So Penny, on that note, I thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.